Today I'm excited to connect with Aliya Roberts. And Aliya and I connected in June, I want to say, of 2021. I've really gotten to know who Aliya is, who she wants to become, who she's evolving into becoming. And today we're really going to talk about the systems that Aliya had introduced into her center that have created transformational results for her company. So thanks so much for joining me here today, Aliya. I'm so grateful to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I want to get started with where you began when you started your center. You have an interesting story. I know your mom is kind of like a silent owner. So tell us a little bit about the history and the context of your company before we dive into what you're doing today.
Sure. So I am, a lot of times they speak about pastors' children. So I was kind of one of those. I grew up in a household that had a childcare program in the basement. That is all I remember. So I kind of grew up with children around. We literally was talking about the other day. We asked about a little boy who was with us even on Christmas Day years ago. Like, it was always children around. So my mother has been doing this work since I was about 2 or 3. From my understanding, I was a really sick child, so she ended up having to stay home, and she began caring for children in the neighborhood. So that is all I had known. And staff who had been with my mother, been working with her for years, still laugh because I vowed to never be a part of the childcare industry. This was not, I was like, I will never. I don't see how you guys do it. I love the children. I would come downstairs, see them, but this was not my journey. And it wasn't initially. So I have a fashion background. I went to school for fashion merchandising, so I was a buyer. But then when my daughter was about 5 years old, I was toying with the idea of moving to California to continue in the fashion industry. But my mother actually was acquiring a building and wanted me to join with her and partner with her in the childcare, but on the business side. So she's very much in the kitchen, cooking meals, holding babies. That is her thing. And I was coming in on the business side. And that's what happened 13 years ago. So it's been 13 years now. And it was the best decision I've ever made.
What made you decide to say yes to something that you kind of almost swore you would never say yes to? What was the catalyst for the yes?
So at that point, I was a mother. So in my 20s, so I was still a young mom, and the fashion industry is very fast paced. So I saw that there was a divide. I worked long hours. And at that point, I started questioning, was it worth it? I loved what I did. It was my passion. But, this could be something to where as though I could continue on my mother's legacy. It could be something I could build for my children. And it sounded good. It sounded good. Interestingly, you know what I'm forgetting? Interestingly, I was offered a different position. I went to another buying company. I was offered another position the same day that we got the license for the childcare for Pratt Street Learning Center, which is still in operation. And the childcare reimbursement, the pay salary was, I had to compare the salaries and make a decision. And I remember seeing which one should I do. I can kind of support on the business side and not be there every single day. So I took the job, but I still helped create the foundation and handbooks and things like that. 3 months later, my whole department was laid off. They restructured the business. I literally left. I remember leaving the company, and I walked into Pratt Street as the director and was there ever since. And I don't believe that it was, I don't believe it was by chance.
I don't think anything is really by chance. I think there's so much divine intervention that really comes into everything. And, if you're a person of faith, it's God, universe, whatever you want to call it. But I think there's so much that is beyond our control, what we think we're the puppeteers of our life, and we're really, really not. So let's dive a little bit into the mindset that you have slowly shifted into when it comes to being more organized, being more systematic, being more methodical, more intentional. what was kind of this breaking point? And I know it's never one thing. There's always like a bunch of things that lead up to like, okay, I can't do this anymore. First, what is the I can't do this anymore? And then what was the breaking point of I've got to do something different?
So interestingly, and I think I told you this before, I will never forget, I'm one of those, you think you can multitask, right? So, but I was on a retreat. So in June, you had the conference, and I was on a retreat, and I was listening. I'm like an audible girl, so I'm listening, and you kept saying, "You are not a machine. You are not a machine." That was it, and at that point, I was truly tuned in because I wanted to understand. I'm like, I'm not a machine, right? So at some point, I adopted it. And I was like, I'm not a machine. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why do I think that I could do all of these things and do them well? It's stressful. Nothing's really getting done as effectively as they should be. But I'm all over the place. So that really started the mindset shift in regards to I am not a machine and I need to do something about how I am operating so that it can ultimately trickle down and be more effective for my team and my organization. So that really was a catalyst. It started there. As well as we had a major shift, right? A lot's been going on with COVID, but we had a major shift in my organization where we had the biggest turnover we've ever had. Like, we prided ourselves on low turnover, and including my director. Like, I've never had to fill a director position. It's just so we started having this turnover. So many things were happening in the organization where it was kind of also a forced shift, whereas though I had to take a look at staffing, systems, the organization, and figure out how, because there was no way that I could do all of the work that needed to get done. I really needed to look at the system that we had set up to make sure that it would be conducive to the direction we were going. So in addition to the new mindset of I am not a machine and all the changes that were happening, I knew it was time to make some major changes. And that's when, that's when I joined the owners group, and I had my director join the directors group so that we could begin this mind shift change together and change the organization.
So I have an interesting question for you that I don't think I've ever asked you before is, why didn't you continue to believe, well, I just need to do more. I just need to hunker down more. I just need to work harder. Because so many people believe that. I know that the hundreds of people that are listening to this episode are going to be like, well, Aliya, you just didn't try hard enough. You don't just push yourself more. Why did you say, I can't believe that bullshit anymore? What was it?
Well, it just didn't make sense. It's like insanity, right? Insanity. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, and the results are the same. So I remember I've been working, you know what it was, Tim? I've been working 10 to 12 hour days, like all the time. And my kids, they always say, well, you're going to work again. You're still working. I remember sitting at my desk like 5 p.m. And my husband called, he's like, are you leaving yet? I was like, no. He's like, well, what are you doing? I didn't know what I didn't have anything to do. I really didn't have anything to do, but I had to be here because I just had to be here. That's just what I do. And I found myself just doing stuff, and I was busy, but not really productive. And it just didn't make any sense. So I had to start looking at what I was doing every day. Actually, once I began to really understand that I'm at the head of this organization, and if I'm all over the place and yes, we're doing well, things look really good. However, our systems, everything was all over the place, and there really was no set system. So therefore, it didn't make any sense. So how much more effective would we be if I really hunkered down on what I was really good at and allowed those people who were a part of the organization to tap into what they were really great at, reduce the amount of time that we're working, be more effective and productive? How much more better will we be? And it costs less. Like, I mean, come on. So, and I could spend more time with my children. Like, yeah, all of it just made sense. Like, it didn't make any sense. I was here for all of those hours just to be here. Yeah, it didn't make sense. So
I love that you had that awareness in that moment when you were speaking to your husband around, wow, I'm here just to be here. Like, I'm working just to be working. Like, I'm busy just to be busy. Right. And I think it takes so much deep reflection, because I think people are listening to them saying, well, your story's not my story. I'm actually working. I'm actually producing things. Like, I'm doing stuff. But it's not true. You're not. No, like, there comes a certain point where the work actually becomes a flaw. You're not actually productive anymore because it's too grueling on your body. You are forgetting that you're not a machine, that you're a human. So you spoke so beautifully just a few minutes ago where you're like, and things were cheaper and everything was better and we have all these systems, but it's never this, Candyland approach. There's such a purging and a almost destructive phase first before we enter this beautiful place. So what were this episode's about? Like, the real, the raw, the messy, and the ugly. So let's talk about, as you started to realize, okay, I need more efficiency, I need a calendar, I need time blocks. What were you doing that wasn't necessarily healthy while you were doing all these good things? What were some of the filling the void, right? Because when you're at work till 7 p.m. and then you all of a sudden start cutting home early, you don't all of a sudden walk us out and like, all right, who wants to read a book? I'm going to make cookies for everyone. Like, that's not what we do. That's not what. Tell us the truth.
So, yeah, I mean, so I wasn't, right, so the things that weren't healthy that I was doing, that's your question?
Yeah. And again, as much as you want to share, like, this is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and I felt so bad. Something actually that was an aha moment on the retreat that I was on that day. We spoke about where this mindset came from, that I had to be so busy and I mentioned earlier about carrying on the legacy and I had to do all of this stuff. I really realized about myself that a lot of things I was putting on myself. Like, no one expected all of these things from me. It really was me saying that, no, if I'm not here, if they don't see me, if I'm not a part of it, then that I'm not stepping up to the plate. So I really started to realize that a lot of that inner chatter, it was me. So I had to, kind of realize, okay, a change needs to be made, because I'm ultimately doing all of those things and I'm missing out on important moments in my home. So my husband would send pictures sometimes, of them taking a walk in the playground. And I'm like, I literally said, I wish I could be there. And he was like, well, why can't you? I had no answer. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see my children at the playground. We're going to take our walks. That's a big thing for them, taking walks around the neighborhood, nothing major. I remember I ended up, having one of my daughters, I ended up hiring her as like an assistant because I was going back to school. I'm a student. I'm a PhD student on top of everything else. So I needed some additional support, and I would literally have to create a reminder to eat and ask her to heat my food up. Otherwise, I wouldn't leave the office because I was too busy. And I don't want to make it seem like I wasn't busy or I wasn't. No, I was, but I was manufacturing. I was adding things. Oh, I can catch up. But I was never caught up, ever. And I really didn't have a higher level goal of what needed to get done today. And what really frustrated me was, at the end of the day, I took a look at everything that I had done, and I didn't feel like I accomplished anything. So it was madness. I got stuff done, but there really wasn't a bigger picture. There wasn't a major task. There wasn't a focus. So again, by the end of the day, I was like, oh my goodness, what did I really get done?
I'm tired. I feel like a wrung out towel.
Yeah.
But what truly happened today?
Exactly. What really happened? And I couldn't really answer for it. So none of it made sense. One
of the practices that you've really adopted is the gratitude practice. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast. We have a whole episode 3 on the show. Sometimes I feel like I talk about it ad nauseum in all my groups and all the coaching. What shifted for you as you began to really adopt this mindset of this gratitude practice for your company?
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to get to the end because it just happened a few days ago. But, um, it's interesting because it really didn't take much at all to implement, but it made such a difference. By me taking out the time to express gratitude and make sure that my staff received the feedback about, what I had seen, what I've been seeing them do, and just writing cards. I started making videos and sending them out. They were just sporadic. They were all over the place. And I got, so much great feedback from staff in regards to it that we do our bi-weekly staff meetings. We're doing them virtually right now because of COVID. We do our meetings and they have a set agenda. And a part of it is, it's called Headlines. It's about gratitude. It's supposed to last about 5 minutes because every piece of the agenda is timed. But that is the longest part of our meeting. So it's headlines, it's scorecards. We go over all of our information. And then it's the longest part of the meeting is supposed to be issues where we work through issues. That's like the shortest amount of time. But the longest amount of time is so many people shouting out their coworkers because they are grateful that they did whatever. And that is the longest part. So I'm typing because I record the minutes and I'm typing all of the shout outs that the staff are giving one another. It's no longer just me expressing this gratitude. It has now been adopted as everyone gives gratitude to everyone. And this happens bi-weekly. It's things that seem so little, but they're huge to everyone else. Like we have one staff person who breastfeeds, so she takes time. So she's so grateful to the staff who relieves her during that time. It's staff who had some losses and family members, so they express gratitude for everyone just being so supportive. But I promise you, every other week we spend so much time because everyone wants to say thank you to someone else in the organization, and it's huge. It has totally changed the feeling within our organization as well. And by the time we get to issues, because issues doesn't always have to be like an issue. It just may be a topic of discussion.
Sure.
It might be one or two things, but we don't spend the 30 minutes on it that's allotted. So, I'm so excited about that. But ultimately, what I was going to get to is our last day before we left for winter break last week, Thursday was our last day. They called me into the auditorium. And it was a surprise. So I walked in and they had a presentation and they had a tree and it had all of these cards on it. And it was called the Giving Tree. And it had cards of gratitude from all the staff to my mom and I. And I did the same thing. And I posted the video and everything, but it was such a surprise because it meant so much. It wasn't a gift. They also did give a card, but the tree just had notes of gratitude on it. So the gift came back. It came back and it wasn't planned. And they said they worked all week to keep it a secret. But that was ultimately how we ended off our school year, was a giving tree to myself and my mother, which was, again, it totally created the environment that I set.
So many thoughts on this, but let's talk about a couple of things here. Let's talk about a timeline here for a second, because you joined in June, right? So we have June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So you have probably about 6 months, right?
Yes.
6 months is not a very long time, right? It is a long time and it isn't a long time. But what you did consistently over 6 months is a very ordinary practice of gratitude.
Yeah.
And what it did is this unbelievable compounded effect of people being part of a culture of contribution. You didn't tell them, create a giving tree for me, write gratitude for me in honor of the holiday. You planted all these beautiful seeds, and then, proverbially, you have this tree planted for you of everyone wanting to share this gratitude. And I hear so much resistance sometimes from leaders of but I do gratitude, but I say thank you, and it doesn't work.
Right.
I'm sure you've had this thing before you joined in June, where you were like, but I give thank you, but I say gratitude, but I show appreciation. What was the real shift in these kind of consistent things that you did over the last 6 months that's different from the previous kind of appreciation or gratitude that you showed the team?
I think it was how we started. It was how we started the year. It was the intentionality. It was really the intentionality. Like, so the gratitude, we say thank you. And, I remember hearing that, we don't thank you enough. Like, I would hear, and I was like, but we say thank you all the time. The intentionality behind it, not that it wasn't genuine before, but it's ingrained in who we are. And it's also not just me doing it. It's creating the culture to where as though we're all doing it and we want to do it. Not that, it's tied to your pay, or it's not forced. It's something that you end up wanting to do. Not only that, because interestingly, right, June is when we learned it, but we really started with a lot of new staff end of August. Like, our school year really begins. So we had orientation for a whole week. But the way we started the school year off, that's really what set the tone. So for the first time, we closed for a week. We didn't have children, and we dedicated it to staff orientation, and we worked together as a team, and we created a school theme together, and we constantly talk about it, right? It wasn't just created in August. We still do it. Like, it's like who we are. So we live by that. We created this foundation together. And we work together as a team. And we also have core values that, again, they're not just written. That's what we live by every single day. So, and now gratitude is a part of it. It's something new that it's like a concept that I learned, but shared it. But I didn't only share it verbally, but we do it. So it actually is just ingrained in who we are now. And, it just shows in our work every day.
What's happened is a new identity shift that both you and the directors, your leadership team and staff have really embodied. And when we shift identity, that doesn't happen in an overnight process. There isn't a pill or a biohack or whatever to become a new person. And that is unfortunately what so many people want now. Just give me the tactic, give me the strategy, give me the 10-step process. And while we do teach processes and systems in schools of excellence, it's never this linear approach of like, well, follow this exactly, and then this is exactly what's going to happen in your center. Every single leader that has implemented the gratitude matrix has seen different results in their organization, right? Not every leader has a giving tree given to them before Christmas, but every single leader has experienced one thing that's a common denominator, a culture of contribution, where people want to be part of something bigger. And so I want to hear from you, Aliya. What are some of your new rhythms or routines as a business owner where you continue to create this culture of contribution, of giving, of reciprocity, and of less issues, right? Every time there's always going to be issues, right? Thinking that you're going to solve all issues is that doesn't happen. But there's less. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So what I realized it created, and something else that I learned from the conference and just being a part of your schools of excellence, is the fact that I am not always available to staff. That used to be a thing. I prided myself on my door is always open. And then it was like, no, but you don't have time for the door to be open. And it was like, I don't have time. I have things I have to do. So
things to do, places to go.
Exactly. So I adopted that, but what it also did, right, because in my mind, my team needs me. But in a different way, what it did was it created this level of not just accountability, but empowerment to where as though they don't need me in the way that I thought they needed me, because they really have all the skills and they have the tools. Also, the reason they have so much gratitude for one another is because they're all stepping up to be there and to support one another, so that there's not as many issues, because they're able to problem solve and figure out, well, how can we take care of this? Like, it's most things that I hear about is already done and gone and taken care of. Like, they've taken care of it. That's why there's not as many issues. That's why there's so much gratitude. And I'm able to just continue on with my work. Like my door right now is closed. It's closed a number of times. I have my schools of excellence posting on the door, and it says I am not available because I'm creating a school of excellence. But it's just kind of become a part of every day. And the team, they're able. They're just able. And I believe that they've shown that, I'm not needed as much, and I don't have to be seen as much as I thought I did. And it's not a bad thing, because for a second, I sat back and listened to them. The gratitude was not about me. It's rarely about me at all. I rarely get a gratitude. And that in itself, that was like, they really don't need me. But at the same time, right, when you think of it in the right way, it was really a proud moment. Like, look at all of this that's happening, and I don't even have to be a part of it. Like, they really run the program. I'm like, goodness.
I just go to the Bahamas all day. So before we go into that, before we go into you're not needed and all of that, because I want to talk about that process. What are the reasons why there are less issues in a culture of contribution? Is because there isn't one person solving all of the problems. There's a lot of people all using their brain collectively, coming together to solve problems. So automatically, it just, like math, it's going to be less because there's more people working on it, as opposed to 50 problems, one person solving it, 50 problems, 40 people solving it. Well, yeah, there's going to be less issues. So let's talk about the grief. Let's talk about your team doesn't need you. And most importantly, what I want to dial in here, what you shared, is when people share gratitude, it's almost never about you. Can we please talk about that feeling that happens? Maybe now you've overcome it, but those first couple of times when the team is coming to speak and you're not part of the person that is on this big giant pedestal and the hero of everyone's life anymore, what does that feel like?
It was a heart drop at first. It was like,
why? Yeah.
And then for a second, I was like, well, am I not doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Like,
why do we think that right away?
Okay, so maybe I need to do better. Maybe I need to do better. You know what? Maybe they don't see all the stuff that I'm really doing behind these closed doors. They don't think I'm working. All of these thoughts. And then I was like, that's crazy. Look at what's happening, right? Don't we always say, oh, I just wish. I wish they could just figure it out themselves. And I wish. And it's happening. It's literally happening. So those were the thoughts at first. And I still remember the first time I went out on, this was a few years ago, we were in this space, but I remember going out on maternity leave and coming back, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, great, you're back, but you don't have to be here all day. It was like, what do you mean? Like, you guys don't want me here? That's the message you get, but it's like, isn't that what we want?
So let's talk about paradoxically, right? We say we want it, right? We say, oh, I want the team. But then when we get it, we're like, but now I'm not needed. Am I doing enough? Am I worthy enough? They're not seeing what I'm doing, right? So that's why this shift is so challenging, because our mind wants it, but our heart and our soul is saying, but what about me? See me, right? Because we have a need to be seen and heard and validated. So I want to talk now about how you've made this transition, right? Where you're no longer seeking this type of validation and support and feedback loops. How do you feel yourself now as you've made this transition where the team gives gratitude to one another and they take care of one another? What are your new systems? What are your new routines?
So the truth of the matter is, the fact that it's happening, it is allowing me to move closer towards where I'm working towards going. So we have like a 3-year picture. We have a 1-year plan. And over the next 3 years, the plan is for me to transition into my rightful place, which is a visionary. Like that's kind of what I do. And I'm sure that there is someone better at managing the everyday tasks behind this desk. So while I put it in the plan, and that's ultimately what I wanted, it began to be a little difficult that I was moving closer to that. But now I'm grasping the fact that I'm getting closer and closer to that point. Not everyone will be moving in that direction to where as though they won't be on site every single day, but that's the plan. And I'm kind of just becoming comfortable with the fact that someday soon I just won't be here every single day because I'm building a team. That's the point of the systems. That's why we're creating them. And we're creating this organization that where the staff can be self-sufficient, and I'm building an admin team that could do the same thing. That's ultimately what I wanted, and it's happening. So, it took a moment, not a long time, but it took a moment, and I really just had to shift my mind to see it for what it was and be proud at what just took place. Like, to be able to sit back and watch it happening is like, oh my goodness, it's really happening. So the next steps are really to continue to strengthen, and not that now that we're creating the systems, are they going to be perfect? We're refining, and we're still having conversations. We're still having those bi-weekly meetings. We have to keep talking about the issues because we don't want anything to build. That's the purpose of us having them that often. We used to have them every week. It was overkill. And I was like, I don't want them to not feel like these meetings are important, but we have these moments so that they don't linger too long and it becomes a bigger issue. So let's talk about them now. So we'll continue to do all the things that we set, but we do still reflect what's going well, what's not going so well, so we need to continue to refine and strengthen those systems. So that's where we are now.
How do you resist the urge to jump back into old habits, to micromanage, to find, like, how you've built systems and infrastructure, but just there's a lot of people that are listening to this that have done what you've done, right? That have built it and then gone back and sabotaged it completely without recognizing. How do you resist that urge to jump back inside of there?
Oh, I wouldn't want to feel that way again. It's a liberating feeling. Not only that, it just feels so powerful. It feels so powerful. And I'm just proud of where we are. So I would have no desire whatsoever.
Go back there.
Go back at all. No. Mm-hmm. And to see such growth, right? To see growth in myself and other people in a matter of months. It's like, what else can we do? The conversations that I'm having with staff, and now that they resolve one thing, and now they realize that the videos that I were doing, I don't typically do videos, and I don't do lives, and I don't record myself. So when I did them, they were a challenge. And one of my staff said, I really like those videos. I think I'm going to try them for my parents. I'm kind of scared to get behind the video, but I'm going to do it. Right. So these are the type things that are happening, is that we're facing our fears and we're challenging ourselves, because once they start seeing that they could resolve issues and they could problem solve and they're self-motivated, then we're all just going to grow individually, and then we grow together. So it's exciting to watch it.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I want to bring awareness to you from is you're very aware of where you're going. And so it's easier not to fall back into old habits. Yeah. When we are cognizant of what we're doing, of what we're creating and why we're going there, then even when we get the thing that we want, we go back over there because we're not aware that, no, this wasn't the end all be all. There's more to the journey. So I think that piece, I just want you to be aware of, like, you're hyper aware of the mission and vision and values of what you're doing here in this world and what you're building. And that creates that tight alignment with not falling backwards.
You're right. Thank you.
Yeah. So for anyone that's listening, and you've come to a place where Aliya is, and you find yourself sliding back, one of the reasons we slide back is we've lost ourselves. We've lost what we're really pursuing. So let's go into, as we kind of, wrap things up over here, this series is all about ordinary moments create extraordinary results, right? And some of the ordinary moments of gratitude and these simple systems, the door sign, these are simple, ordinary things that have created massive impact. What are some of the ordinary moments that you are enjoying as a mom and a business owner because you're doing this work?
The balance. So I am not here just for no reason anymore. Very intentional. I still remember learning about, like, going through the modules and learning about theme days. And then I literally have them in my calendar. So I'm very focused. I have a focus when I come in every day so that I'm able to focus. And something that I learned to do, I actually was speaking with someone else and they told me about thinking about all the things that I do throughout the day and not just with work, that if I look at them as activities that I complete and I'm proud of them, and I look at them as something that I actually have done, I won't feel like I haven't completed something at the end of the day. Like, for example, having my shakes every morning is a big thing. Getting my children to school on time is a big thing. Doing a building tour is a big thing. So if I'm able to get those done, which I usually do by 9 a.m., I actually had a really good day. I had a good day. Everything else on top of that is great, but I had a good day. So thinking of it differently, having my theme days, blocking out a time, making sure that I have a focused day allows me to be a lot more balanced. It allows me to leave here at a reasonable hour, go home, take walks with my children, or do whatever it is that they want me to do. And quarterly now, I'm actually doing more traveling. So my husband and I, with the children, we're actually able to have more time off. And then I have my days for school. So I'm just really able to balance better without being at work all the time for hours on hours with no reason behind it. So all in all, I am a lot more balanced and my time is used effectively.
You're creating memories with your husband and children that, when we look back at the end of our life, it's those moments where we're like, I used my time for what matters. And really, those are some of the greatest regrets that we always have in life. Did I use my time, which is my only non-renewable resource, in a way that really matters to me in that season, right? How old are your kids again? Remind me.
My youngest 7 and 9, and
right.
They're older. But those
are right. So your two younger ones, like, they're only 7 and 9 ones, right? Like, you'll have bigger seasons where you're not taking care of young kids and you don't have this opportunity, right? And I think this obsession with the time of everything has to be now and I have to do it now. Why? Right? And you've really embraced this beauty of slowing down, of not working just to be working, and really embracing this balance, which I think is such a gift. And I appreciate you sharing that with the many people that are going to be listening, because I think that provides inspiration and hope for many. So my last question to you would be is exactly that. What is a journal prompt, a reflection, question, something for our listener to be thinking about after they heard your story? What do you want them to walk away with? What can they think about?
Just being reflective on what is it that you desire as an individual, because you are not a machine. And we tie ourselves so much to our work that we don't take a moment to think about what it is that we need and we want individually. And what that also does is it allows you to do the same for others. Because we have staff and they're individuals as well, we teach them to do the same thing. So reflect, journal, have personal thoughts and personal goals, balance your life so that there's no regrets, and then teach your staff to do the same. And then we'll all be a lot more well-balanced and a better team for the children and families that we serve.